Okay. So we're going to give it a couple of minutes here, but we're getting into another episode of the podcast. I'm just going to make sure my water bottle close. Give it a minute here, see if we got some people joining us. If you're tuning in for the show, you can skip ahead to about 2 minutes. That's likely when we're going to be starting up. So thank you for being here. But before we get into it, I want to say, as always, the people we're trying to reach with this podcast are anyone involved in the journey of becoming a better athlete. So that's athletes themselves looking to level up in their sport. That is coaches, that is parents of athletes, that's anyone involved in that journey of helping athletes level up and reach the best version of themselves. So if you are friends with someone who is in the middle of building a career in a sport, if you are a coach and you have listened to the show before and you feel like some of your athletes might gain value from it, share the show with them. That is the one thing I ask. That just helps us reach more people and helps us continue to fulfill that goal of helping athletes build their dream careers in sport. Excuse me. So I hope everybody is having a fantastic start to their day. I appreciate you. We're going to give it another about 20 seconds to let some people tune in. And then we are going to get into the podcast. Today we're talking mastering the fundamentals. Still got a little bit of a frog in my throat apparently, but let's get into the show now in 3, 2, 1. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Elite Development Podcast, the show designed to help athletes gain an edge on their opponents and build their dream careers in sport. I'm your host, Kenny Dusseault, and today we are going to be talking about mastering the fundamentals. And so I know if you're listening to this show, if you're an athlete, if you have trained for anything, you've likely heard that saying before. You've likely heard that phrase before, mastering the fundamentals. And the reason I wanted to talk about this today is because I believe this is something that we see a lot in sport itself, but people lack in a lot of other areas that are going to continue to complement the sports. So what I mean when I say that, I know that, as an example, for all the fighters out there, you didn't walk into the gym the first day and get thrown into the ring, if you went to a good gym on your first day, to spar with the high-level guys. You walked into the gym the first day and you were taught a basic fundamental technique, and then you repeated that basic fundamental technique over and over and over again until you got it right. Maybe there were a couple of different techniques thrown in there, but the goal is you're developing the basics, you're developing the fundamentals, and as you continue to develop those and as you continue to improve, only then are you starting to actually add to it, and are you starting to put yourself in a position where you might be ready to compete, right? So the reason that I wanted to talk about this on the show today was because this is very, very well done in the sports themselves, but this is something that a lot of people lack in other areas of their life. So one of the examples, this is something I've seen repeatedly as a strength and conditioning coach, is athletes come into the gym and on day one, they want to be doing all the, crazy hard shit that they've seen people do on Instagram. And I have to slow them down and say, nope, the first couple of months, we're building fundamental movement patterns. We're building the basics to help you improve long-term. And as we repeat those movements, same idea as in the sport, as we repeat those movements and we build a stronger foundation, then we can get to more of the interesting stuff, which is going to more specifically prepare you for competition. The way I always look at this is you've got to look at building the basics in the gym the same way as if you build a house on a cracked, shitty foundation, that house isn't going to stand. And I don't know the ins and outs of construction, but that house is not going to last a very long time if the foundation of the house isn't built strong. And that's the same when it comes to training. So when it's talking about mastering the fundamentals, when you're an athlete and you're starting up in strength and conditioning, don't expect that you're going to come in and you're going to be doing all this cool, fancy, interesting shit right away, because you need to start at the basics the same way as you did in your sport. And as you start to build and as your foundation gets stronger, now you're a better athlete. And in turn, you can compete at a higher level in your sport. But what I see very often is athletes want to come in and they want to jump the gun. They want to go from their first day in the gym to step 10 immediately. And what happens, again, is they want to move on quicker. But if coaches allow them to do that, they're leaving holes in their foundation. Or something I've seen from athletes before as well is they'll start to work through some of the foundational movements. They start to build a little bit, and then way too quickly they go, this kind of training doesn't work for me. I need something more intense. And I need to keep explaining that, we're going to get to the intensity, but we need the foundation before we start really diving into that. Different people obviously can take it at different rates, but the point is you need to master the fundamentals the same way as you do in the sport. You need to master the fundamentals in the gym. And if you can take that more patient approach, if you can truly master what we're doing in the gym, then you're going to start to get into that more interesting training. You're going to start to get into that harder stuff, that more exciting stuff that's going to feel like it's more sport specific, but you're going to have the foundation to also be able to do that while reducing your risk of getting injured while you train and continuing to be able to perform at a high level. So I hope you guys understand. Let me know if that makes sense about mastering the fundamentals in the gym. And if you are an athlete right now and you're starting a strength and conditioning program and you're not happy with, the level that you're at right away, hopefully this helps you understand that the goal is not to be doing something fancy. The goal is to be doing something that's going to better physically prepare you for the sport. Another area that I see this happen a lot in is basic things like meal prepping. Athletes will get all hyped up about, I'm going to start taking my nutrition more seriously. I'm going to start prepping all my meals. I'm going to, I'm leveling up. They do it for 1 or 2 weeks, and then they fall back into their old habits. And, this is one of those fundamental things for success as an athlete, understanding proper nutrition, being able to eat properly to fuel your body to train at a higher level and in turn compete at a higher level. So if you're an athlete right now wondering why you're not at the top level yet, if you're an athlete right now wondering why, the UFC hasn't come knocking on your door, look at those basic habits. Look at the way you're training. Look at the way you're eating. Are you prepping meals consistently? Or for some of you, you might have a sponsor from a meal prep company. If you do, lucky you, that is unreal. I envy those athletes for sure. That takes such a big load off your plate. But if you're in a position where you can do that, now that takes that load off your plate, but the nutrition still needs to be on point. Having that sponsor is one thing, but actually eating the right meals is a whole other thing. So mastering the fundamentals, making sure that you have a routine with your meal prepping that you don't miss so that you're constantly properly fueled through your week. And then one of the other things as well that I see athletes struggle with in this area quite often is recovery. Because, everybody loves to train hard. I know all the athletes out there love the hard training sessions. They love that, achy, sore feeling that they get after a hard day of training. But what they don't love so much is recovery sessions, because I've had a lot of athletes, even my own athletes, tell me they feel like recovery days are setting them back. They're not improving anything. And because they're not improving anything, they're not getting better. But having a proper routine to recover, the thing is, on any one given day, it might not feel that important. But if you're not recovering well, then over time, you're beating your body up more. And if you're beating your body up more and more and more, there's going to hit a point where you're either going to get hurt or you're going to be so burnt out that you can't train properly. And then the training isn't going to be as effective for you. So you need that proper recovery time in your week as well, because if you're not recovering properly, you're not going to be able to train at full capacity. The way I always look at this one is the analogy of a car. If you've listened to the show for any period of time, you've probably heard me use this analogy in some way or another before. But the analogy of the car is, think about it this way. If you get into your car with a full tank of gas and you start driving, what happens? The gas gauge starts going down until eventually it empties. But if you're smart enough to understand that you need to stop and refill the tank, Now you can keep going forever. And so training is like driving the car. Training is you on the road, taking in those kilometers, taking in those miles, depending on where you are, and actually driving the car. Your recovery day is you stopping at the gas station, filling up on gas, changing the oil, and then getting back on the road. So by changing the oil, by stopping for gas, you're allowing your car to go further. And that's the idea behind having a proper recovery routine. So now, digging back into all three of these, what I want to do is give you guys a couple of tips that if these are things that you're not doing right now, give you guys a couple of tips on ways that you can add that in, ways that you can have that fundamental routine that you need in order to succeed as an athlete. So number one, well, we didn't actually talk about this one, but number one is going to be your skill set. If you're going to be a successful athlete, you need to be skilled. I would hope that you all know that by now, but most athletes I talk to have a pretty decent routine for this. But this is as simple as, again, 2, 3, 4 days a week, being in the gym and training specific to the skills, or, depending on your sport, being on the court, being on the ice, being on wherever you need to be to train your skills 2, 3, 4 days a week. And what I want to enforce here is that the routine we need is the one that we can actually stick to. So if you're trying to train every single day and you find you're burning yourself out, you find you can't stick to it, you find that it's just not working for you, whatever the issue is, then that means that routine is too much. And so you need to take away from that routine and you need to take 1 or 2 of those days down. The next thing that we need in that routine, if you're going to succeed as an athlete, is work on your gas tank. Because again, you can be the most skilled athlete in the world, but if you burn yourself out quickly and then your opponent can take over, now your skills don't matter. So we need structured work on your gas tank every single week. And now when I talk to a lot of fighters, they say, yeah, but I go running every morning. Great. That's step one. The body has 3 energy systems, and you need structure to be able to work on all 3 of those energy systems to not only be able to go for a longer duration, but to be able to go for a higher pace and to be able to hold that higher pace for a longer duration. I hope that makes sense. If that makes sense, drop me a comment or drop me a little thumbs up. Or if you're listening to this back on the replay or the podcast, just give a quick silent nod. Understand that if you're just running and that's the only way you're working on your conditioning, you're checking one box of about 20. So you need structured work on your gas tank. And this means strength work. This means aerobic work. This means anaerobic work. I'm not going to go into deep detail on each one of these because I don't want to be sitting here for an hour and a half. But if you are not addressing all of these areas, that's an issue. And right now, you should be looking at what you can do to level up in that area. Now, number 3 is nutrition. And to have a routine in your week that is going to help you with your nutrition, the number one thing we need is, well, like I just said, a routine. And this doesn't need to be anything fancy, but plan out a day and plan out a 3 to 4 hour block once a week that you can cook a pile of meals for yourself. Because right now, if you're stopping to pick food up 2, 3 times a week, well, you're missing out on a big component of your nutrition. So if you can plan out a day where you can actually sit down, cook out a bunch of meals. I usually do mine on Saturdays or Thursdays, depending on how the week goes. And I cook enough meals for at least 4 days. And then I pick one more day during the week that I cook enough meals for the next 3. So I cook twice a week and it takes care of all my meals. But by doing that, I know that every day I have good, nutritious meals ready for me. And I don't ever have to worry about what I'm going to eat for breakfast or what I'm going to have for lunch or what I'm going to eat while I'm at the gym because it's already ready. This saves me time. And in turn, I know that I'm fueling my body properly when I'm going to train. And this is something that if you're trying to succeed as an athlete, you need as well. And the last one I want to talk about is recovery. So if you're an athlete listening to this, do you have a structured routine to help you recover every week? Do you have a structured routine to help you recover every week? Now, this doesn't mean, yes, I sleep in on Saturdays. You need to actually have a day. You need to actually have a routine. If you have a day that is designated as a day that you take off from training, now I would go one step further to ask you, what are you doing in that day? Because if all you're doing is lying on the couch eating shitty food, well, your routine needs some work. What I would recommend is in that day, you can still be active. You should still be active. Anybody who's sitting on a couch for 18 hours, hopefully, is feeling the need to get up and do something. But during that recovery day, you should still be active. My recommendation is a full body stretch, getting some foam rolling in, hitting any areas of the body that are feeling tight or feeling sore. And then once you finish that, a good 15 to 20 minutes of just easy, steady state cardio. So this can be as simple as a walk outside when it's nice. I know for anybody in Calgary with me right now, seeing the ice and snow outside, probably not the day you want to be walking outside if you can avoid it. But having something like that in your day, getting your heart rate up a little bit, letting the blood flow through the body, letting your body recover, not doing anything high impact is, like I mentioned earlier in the show, the same as stopping for gas while you're on a road trip. You're driving the car, the gas gauge is going down, you're getting close to empty, you stop, you fuel up, and then you're ready for that next week and you're ready to take it on at full force. So these are the areas I want you guys all to have a consistent routine in during your week. And if you don't, what I really want you guys to think about is how you can go about adding a routine in for all of these areas. If you don't have one right now, this is something that you need to be adding in. You need a routine to be working on your skill set. You need a routine to be working on your gas tank. You need a routine to be working on your nutrition. And you need a routine to be working on your recovery. These are the fundamentals. These are the areas that are going to help you succeed. And if you're not putting time and effort into these every week, stop looking for that trick or that next step that's going to help move you up to the higher and higher levels, and start with the fundamentals. So that is it for the show. I appreciate everybody who took the time to tune in. Thank you for being here. I absolutely love doing this show. I absolutely love bringing this to you guys. I'm actually upping it now to 5 times a week. So you'll be seeing new episodes out every single day, Monday through Friday. All I ask in return is if you're getting value from the podcast, please share it with a teammate, share it with a friend, and let's all keep leveling up together. I hope you guys all have a fantastic rest of your day. I will talk to you all again very soon.